Okay, so the late, great Gary Peacock once said, in standard jazz, we move from the known to the unknown. And in free music, we move from the unknown to the known. Can you tell me a little bit about what free music is? How does it work? Why does it work? Where does it come from?
I think of it as a chance to explore.
Okay.
And what it does is it informs my traditional playing, and my traditional playing informs my free playing. So I don't really see there's no fence there. It's just the same thing, but one helps the other. And that's brilliant, coming at it from different directions. So making, when you're listening to the cosmos, you're opening up to everything, and then distilling it down to what contribution you can make in that moment.
It sounds heady, but the listening to the cosmos concept is there's sort of, I was speaking one time with someone and he said, it's like when you're in touch with the universal spirit of music, and the more you are in touch with that, and the more you can shut down your own mind and just sort of, you really want to, isn't so many things, you just want to be a vessel. But you're riding a wave. So that's how it is. Often you're riding a wave. So you don't want to think too much, if at all, to disturb that balance, but you have to keep moving with it. You can't sit on it. Which sometimes can mean waiting, sometimes being really active. And the thing with the free music that draws me to it, I have always had a need to do it, and sometimes I think really it's the most relevant music I've played, is that it puts me in touch with the concept that creativity is boundless. There's boundless creativity that we can access. It never stops.
So what I'm hearing is that there's less of a sort of intellect, a conscious presence of the mind saying, oh, okay, I have a D minor 7 going to a G7, I can, which we try to stay away from anyways in jazz, but even more so in this, there's not an intellectual mental presence as much as there is an intentionality to create an openness, both to listening and being a vessel.
I think so. I mean, I love listening to the words of Sonny Rollins and what he'll say about stuff, and he'll say things that are just so accurate. It'll be like if you're thinking it's too late,
right?
That sort of a thing where your mind can actually get in the way. If you clear away the mind so much, then you're more receptive to what might happen, right. And then you can actually experience more joy through the music because you've actually gotten rid of the self,
right? The
big self. Yeah.
I would say it's an ego smashing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I would also just say that free music works really well with the poems that Roy wrote, because it's very much about being in the present moment, both from a spiritual perspective, and also with poetry, especially with spoken word. It is a bit more free and open, and there's a lot of space that you can create, and that space always keeps me rooted into the present moment, which is why improvisation is so exciting.
So for you, speaking poetry in a musical context, sometimes we have, maybe a sketch or a melodic or an emotional concept that we're going to draw on from for a particular song. But for you, you actually they're not lyrics. You're not saying lyrics in a song, but they are words with which you're creating the story informed by the poem, but also how you choose to speak them is creating the same energy as us. How do you find that? Do you find you kind of ride, like Scott used the analogy of a wave? Do you ride on the wave of the music and the text kind of simultaneously?
It's a bit like that, actually, what Scott mentioned. It's a bit like surfing, and there is that sense of balance. But that's part of the freedom of the poetry as opposed to songs, because you're not stuck to a melody. And in that way, I think we actually, with the poetry, through the words, but also in response to what the musicians are doing, you create melody that didn't exist before.
So for us, when we're improvising, we're used to hearing each other and responding to timbre, dynamics, energy. How does it differ for you two when you hear text? Are you responding to the same timbre and musical elements of an orator like Justin, but also are you hearing the words? Do you find the words influence the playing?
I'm a little bit biased because I wrote it.
Yeah.
But the words, I wanted to construct segments that didn't make sense in a obvious way. So immediately I find words take me to another place as soon as you add two conflicting elements together, or something that might strike you as like, oh, that's different. So that's all I wanted was, to basically take myself to another place. And in that sense, it's very much like how I approach music anyways. So it helped that I had written some of the words because I know them quite intimately, and I also have memories to draw from and awareness of that. So I'm biased, but yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this about you, but you've been writing poetry for a long time.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me because I realized that I started writing in high school poems. And that's like, how many years ago? That's 30 years. And all along, I've been doing this. And, eventually you start looking around and got all this stuff on the computer. I've written all this stuff. And like, well, am I somewhat of a poet? Do I say it? Do I dare dream it? And, now that's why I wanted to get this out, because it's like, well, seems to be happening. It seems to be something I love. And I love reading West Coast poets. There's just some amazing body of work out there, and we can all relate to it and draw from it. And it just makes sense to me.